Disclaimer. This footage of the game is actually quite old, but I can tell you this much: I'm not going back. Hello again, I'm Fluff, and this is Nether. This is a game that is available on Early Access. It's a survival title, but not with zombies. It's got interdimensional, freaky teleporter monsters and exploding, screaming things. My first impressions were a little bit underwhelming, to say the least. The first thing I noticed was, because I'd actually gone onto the website and read the FAQ, I noticed that there were apparently microtransactions in the game. And I realised when I went to the Steam forums and then read their posts that they'd changed their mind about this. But evidently they didn't think it quite important enough to update their FAQ. Just a little niggle there, but it can be the sort of thing that's very irritating. The next issue I had was, for the first time I've ever experienced it, I was actually getting nauseous while playing, which I eventually pinned down to a very narrow field of view, combined with a very odd camera, which seemed to be causing me some real issues. Thankfully, this game is based on the Unreal Engine, so it was a fairly trivial task to go into the user options INI in the install directory and change the field of view to something that felt more reasonable. However, setting the field of view to something I was comfortable with did end up breaking the character model as it was shown on screen, so I had to get used to being able to see the inside of my arms. As regards the camera weirdness, the only real way I think I can explain it is, I think the camera is rotating about the point of motion instead of being on the point of motion, which means you get some very weird stuff going on. I have some footage of me standing at the edge of some stairs and turning, which I think highlights it quite well. I don't think it has any massive gameplay implications, it's just weird and I have no idea why it's there. So getting on past that, as far as looks go, this is Unreal 3, so it doesn't look absolutely god-awful, vomit-inducing horrendous, but it's looking kind of aged already. We've pretty much seen the best it can do, I think, at this point. The actual, overall setting, though, is very cool. It's the sort of post-apocalyptic, I Am Legend, overgrown city, that sort of environment. They've got this very eerie ambient noise going on with these sort of shrieks and squeals and things. I was definitely enjoying that side of things, this weird, overgrown, surreal, slightly uncomfortable and dangerous feeling place. And the NPC enemies, the Nether, the monsters, certainly the initial few contacts I had with them, especially when I didn't really have any weaponry, so to speak, just the kitchen knife, those were terrifying. Those were what convinced me that they could really make something of this if they tried. There were a couple of instances where I was just creeping along trying to mind my own business, and you would just hear the shriek of one of these monsters, letting you know it knew where you were and had seen you, and you'd hear the whump as it teleported and sort of skittered around towards you. And you know you can fight it, but certainly if you don't have any gear, you can't really fight it well, so it's, a case of, well, do I try to run? And it can be quite exhilarating and really get your pulse going. But unfortunately, as far as my experience of the game, that was pretty much the end of it, really. The rest of the experience consisted of more or less every player encounter being terminal, safe zones being camped, drop areas, the loot drop areas also being camped. And what I came away with was the feeling that what they've managed to craft here is actually really more of just a griefing simulator. Something with which you can ruin people's day as they go about trying to do whatever they do. And I really had the impression that it was just going to end up as a bunch of folks in funny hats griefing one another as the Nether run around, being really just essentially a nuisance. Now, considering you are looking at early access, development is continuing, this stuff may change or already have changed, and the finished product certainly doesn't have to end up playing the way the game currently does. If you were looking for a recommendation, then I would say, are you looking for something in which you can run around and just piss people off and ruin their day by going absolutely nuts and killing everybody? Are you looking for a game where you can run around in a first-person shooter style thing with some survival elements, but mainly run around stabbing and shooting everything like a complete nutcase while occasionally eating bags of chips, and you're simultaneously looking for something with a vein of horror running through it, then there you go. But at the same time, really, for the money you've spent on this, you could pick up a finished title that was just as good and did the same, and, of course, is finished. Especially if you were considering picking up the 30 quid version. In conclusion, after making me physically sick, Nether gave me a very bland overall experience, even for something in the middle of its development. And if nothing else, raised a valid point in my mind as to why you might not want to invest in early access, but also pay too much attention to friends who don't know your exact tastes. And although yes, the judgment may be premature, there is already so much stuff out there that is in the middle of development and at a higher level than this, that I really don't see the point. So that will be all from me. Thank you for watching. Feel free to flame on or off as you like, and until next time, take care.